What would women dislike most if they became men? Story 1. Constantly worrying about not looking like a creep. Seriously. It's exhausting. I'm a 5 feet 10 inches, 225 pounds, muscular. I know damn well that I'm probably the last person a woman, or anyone for that matter, wants to see walking behind them while they are alone at night. I work in retail too, so there's times where I will walk around the store just to avoid walking behind women, just to make them feel better. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that women aren't justified for being wary. I completely understand why they might feel that way, but it just sucks constantly trying to make sure I don't accidentally look like a creep. Story 2. How often they'll be asked to do manual labor. Edit. I wanted to point out, I don't think women never do manual labor or simth like that. It's just that they're not often asked or expected to do it. It's almost implied that if there's a man around, he should carry everything. I'm not even saying that's a bad thing itself, just that going from not being asked to do it at all to it being downright expected and mocked if you don't do it is what they would dislike. Story 3. My birthday was the other day. I realized I hadn't gotten a cake, a hug, or made to feel special in over 10 years. It's okay. I don't like being a burden or anything, so it's no big deal. Edit. Thank you all so much. Seriously, maybe the internet isn't so bad after all, making me all emotional. I appreciate the kind gestures and words so much. 3. I want to clarify that loneliness isn't a man issue, but a human issue. I just wanted to tell you about my experience. I appreciate your stories, and it really does help to not feel so damn alone for once. Thank you all again. I wish you all the best. Story 4. The world is a lot colder as a man. It is entirely possible for a single man living alone to go days, weeks, months, or even years without any meaningful interactions. I understand that the flip side of this is that women get a lot of unwanted attention, which is probably worse due to the dangers. Story 5. We have no allies in public, every man for himself. Seeing people cross the street if they see you coming the other way. Not having friendships with any heart-to-heart conversations. Expect your existence to be ignored. People are uncomfortable with you interacting or being near their kids. Can't chill at the park and innocently watch the playground. Dads of children at the playground are viewed as suspicious too, knowing you're seen as a potential predator until proven otherwise. You're guilty until proven innocent by the public regarding UL incidents. Society generally not caring about your emotional or physical health. An example is that 33K men die from prostate cancer and 42K women die from breast cancer. How much public support do you see to fight prostate cancer? Story 6. The coldness, emptiness. Become a lone wolf, or perish it is in most cases. Everyone expects you to be thriving on your own. No help, nothing. Expected to construct empires out of nothing, and to withstand all and any pressures. No one cares about you or how you are. Story 7. The reality that your only value in the world is in what you provide, not who you are. Chris Rock said it perfectly. Only women, children, and dogs or loved unconditionally. I know a lot of women that say that isn't the truth, but when we lose a job or get injured, a man can immediately feel it. It isn't in our head. When we stop being able to work around the house or a paycheck stops coming in for 1 minute, you can feel the disdain and avarice in the way everyone relates to you. I think the stark realization it would bring if a woman felt this for literally a split second would be altering for them. Story 8. Not being able to complain about anything ever again. Now, saying that could work as a joke about how women stereotypically like to complain about stuff a lot, but it's also true. As a bloke, you have to kind of keep a tally in the back of your mind at all times about how many times you have complained about stuff and to what person, because if you get caught complaining too much, suddenly you're less of a man in a lot of people's eyes. That's why a lot of men don't talk much about their feelings, and that's a contributing factor to why so many have mental health issues. Edit. Imagine the cultural shock for a woman who becomes a man, going from a culture that will not only let you complain, but will oftentimes actively help you with your issue and offer some sort of support to suddenly being treated like crap for it. I think I've even heard of some trans men who have said as much. In becoming a bloke, the world became a much colder place. Story 9. The pressure to always seem brave, strong, capable. I'm a woman who can change a tire, kill a bug, or carry something heavy. But the thought that I'd be expected to be able to do all stuff automatically, just because I'm a male, is daunting to me. Case in point, if any of the above were required, my husband would take care of it. Mostly because he coddles me, but also because of societal norms. Story 10. No one cares about you. Inherently. People only care if you have something you can provide to them. If you don't have wealth, sociability, and/or good looks, you are lower than gravel. You have to step up and sacrifice yourself, /provide /persevere in any and every scenario or be looked down upon. I can attest because I don't inherently care about other men either. Dog eats dog world. Story 11. How often you get voluntold for stuff. How much people look to you for solutions and then immediately discredit you. How you aren't supposed to hold any major emotions other than happy and sad, and never for longer than a few minutes. How we're expected to be the breadwinners and still fight for women's equality when women are pushing us out of the workplace. How our wants and needs don't matter when a woman wants otherwise. How we can't even interact with children in public without being labeled as a creep or pedo. Most importantly, how men are expected to deal with it regarding life as a whole. Men, especially white men, are being demonized in the West, and we're meant to just take it on the chin and continue going like nothing is wrong. Society is us, but we know that society depends on us to function, so we continue. Story 12. You no longer get to just vent, or you can do it, but it's pointless and makes you feel worse, not better. In general, of course, there are exceptions and special cases to all of this. Ladies, imagine you're at your lowest. You have a problem that you just don't know how you're going to fix. Even if you talk to someone just to vent, chances are good someone is going to offer to help in some way. When you're a man and you do that, you just spend 30 minutes talking about a problem, and at the end of the problem is still there and 100% still yours to fix. Nothing has changed. I honestly think for a lot of women, that would be the biggest thing. If a woman just talks about a problem long enough, even if they aren't looking for help, the problem will get better. I honestly think a lot of women just don't get that just doesn't work if you're a guy. Story 13. As a guy, you can't really pay any attention to kids out of concern that people will think you're a pedo. I had a short-lived career as a professional skateboarder, and I still love to hit up skate parks. If you see a young kid struggling, I always got to fight the urge to go help them out because I'm worried about what assumptions people would make about my motives. Story 14. If you're 20 years old or older, you have probably received the last genuine compliment you'll hear in your life. You are the rock/stoic/well that people throw their emotions and feelings into, but your feelings are not going to get considered in any way. The notion of happy wife, happy life =. Any compromise in your direction will be gaslit into you being domineering. You want 10x more than an average woman, but regardless of your relationship status, it is likely at least 10x more difficult to accomplish this. You are last in line for literally everything in the world unless there is a military draft. Story 15. Being rejected. Not being able to talk about how we feel. Opinions being disregarded. The lack of intimacy because it's always on a woman's terms. Seeing that you're not a princess. Your man works his ass off to give you the best he can. Being separated from the kids when a relationship breaks down. The lack of drama. Us men don't want or need it. No more free drinks in bars. The list is endless. Only men understand what men go through. Story 16. Being looked at suspiciously for watching my kid play on the playground. In contrast, being praised for being a great dad for bringing my kid to the playground when I know my wife doesn't get the same praise I do for doing the exact same thing. Simultaneously insulting to both of us. To mom, insulting because she feels her child rearing is a given and doesn't need encouragement or praise for it. To dad, insulting because he realizes he is being praised for bare minimum and starts to feel like he could do anything and get praise. So the praise starts to mean very little. Is that right, dads? I made a guess at why it's insulting to you when people do this, but I'm not entirely sure. Story 17. The distrust society gives you around women and children. The body hair, the facial hair, the ass hair, the constant sweat and bad smell, the expectations of manual labor, regardless of what you do for work, the lack of choices for fashion, hearing what men actually say about women when no women are around, the rampant toxic masculinity. If you put on weight, it just all goes to the belly. Going bald, always being hot temperature-wise, being told to man up anytime you are upset about anything, being made fun of or judged if you cry, not being able to cry even if you want to. The deep voice. I might be biased on these things, seeing as I'm a trans woman, so I'm just listing things I despise pre-transition. Story 18. Being invisible. 90% of men go through life being completely unnoticed by the general public, not getting the benefit of the doubt in most situations. Any interaction with a kid, any argument in public, any kind of dirty or generally manual task, being on the downside of equality, always being expected to make the first move or go out on a limb while trying to date, being expected to pay for things, just dating in general. Story 19. People not caring about you as much in general, there will be less helping hands. Partners will rarely come to you, and most of the time you will have to go out of your way to find them. When you're going through something, less PPL will gaff, if any, and you will rarely receive sympathy. The worst would probably be that your value will generally be tied to what you can do for someone, and it feels more lonely as a man. Story 20. Men are seen as providers, not recipients. We're expected to give our livelihoods for someone else and expect nothing in return. We're expected to go through life never opening up or showing emotion to anyone. The few times people do encourage us to open up, it's usually a partner who will have a negative emotional reaction and see you as less of a man afterward, and forever hold anything you shared with them as ammunition during arguments. You'll be viewed as disposable. You have no inherent value beyond what you can give to others, and will be frequently exploited for the same. Men's mental health issues aren't taken seriously. You will be told to man up frequently just for being human. You are assigned collective guilt for everything wrong any other man has ever done, regardless of your own actions. Meanwhile, you'll constantly be told that you're privileged and benefit from societal bias, but you'll never experience any of it. You'll never be complimented, won't feel like you're good enough and deserve to be loved as you are, especially if you're not providing something of monetary value in return. It's an inherently lonely and closed-off existence. Story 21. The reactions people would have to them if they started being emotionally open and vulnerable and/or crying. They would the belittling and social shunning that would result in most cases with many people. Also, the rarity of external validation and compliments. It would probably be freeing in many respects as compared to the overt harassment they receive as women. But this wouldn't be a happy medium. It would go entirely in the opposite direction. The only thing that would keep them from being largely invisible by default is the fact that many strangers either fear them or see them as potential rivals. Story 22. Men don't get much social interaction out in the wild. We usually don't engage in small talk with other guys. Nice jeans, buddy. And women typically don't start conversations or small talk with men they don't know. I think women might be used to the safety that comes with being around other women, but as men, it mostly feels isolating and lonely when you're out in public alone. Story 23. Constantly being demonized for existing, being told it's never good enough, not having unconditional love, rarely being appreciated, constantly being looked at and treated like an ATM, having their valid feelings dismissed if they even share them, having feelings you have shared weaponized against you just for the sake of winning the argument, being called insecure and controlling for having relationship boundaries, being demonized for having relationship preferences, coming home from a hard labor job in the heat, exhausted, to a combative partner, just to name a few. There is more, though. Story 24. The stress of providing. Yes, it's 2024, and gender roles and blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing, nobody will ever fault a woman for a couple or family's hardships. I don't care what anyone says. The pressure to protect and provide is always on the man, and most women cannot comprehend what that's like. Couple this with the fact that it's increasingly harder to do so in today's world, and you have an immense weight being carried by so many men. Even the most progressive thinking people I know fall into this frankly ed-up way of viewing the role of a man. Of course, there are exceptions. I was raised by a single mother myself and sympathize with them greatly. However, even that scenario is much different. Single mom struggling? Oh, the poor thing. Single dad struggling? Get it together, pal. What a bum. Story 25. When we are born, we are small, fragile, cute. Then we hit an age between 10, 20, where all that matters is what you bring home. At younger ages, it's good grades. At older ages, it's money. And that's it for the rest of your life. You are a provider and nothing else. Your feelings don't matter, your opinions don't matter. Story 26. Shaving my face beard every day. I had to get lasered to rid myself of my mustache and sideburns, thanks Italian and Turkish ancestry, after years of Nair waxing and tweezers. I can't imagine having to deal with ingrowns and razor bumps on my face on top of the regular maintenance like my husband does. Story 27. Sudden unexplained aggression from so-called alpha males trying to show off for their friends or simply having a day can range from just jump scare to actual physical assault for fun. Happens more frequently if you don't conform to what a man should look like by looking nerdy, having long hair, or dressing outside the norm. Story 28. Probably being treated like a man by other women. You're the worst, but you also need to be dependable and reliable. You should be funny, handy, and supportive, but strong enough to not need excessive support because that's burdensome. You need to have a profession her friends approve of, or they'll poison her against you. Oh, and you need to be an empath because if you can't read her mind, emotions, and body language well enough and ask her what's wrong, she'll give you a huffy nothing or figure it out. Women will talk shit about the patriarchy, then expect you to conform to it as rigidly as possible. Some women want their partner to live up to their ever-changing idea of what a man is, rather than accept the man in front of them. Some women don't do this, those women are the best. Story 29. Your couples therapist will always think you're the problem, even if your wife is openly abusive in front of them. This happened to me with 3 different therapists over the course of 4 5 years. My wife is also a therapist, which I'm sure didn't help the situation. My wife and I are much better now and have worked through the vast majority of the issues. The major ones being that she was incredibly codependent and emotionally manipulative. It took her getting into group before she would acknowledge it. Fourth therapist is great. Actually listens to both of us instead, if telling me to shut up and stop crying. Story 30, not being able to offer to watch their friends' kids. I have one friend who trusts me to watch his daughter, and I'm so grateful for it. She's 8, and I have been introducing her to good movies and Pokemon. She's like the niece I never had. But I stay G, I can't take her with me to run errands. BC people will ask if she's mine, and I say I'm babysitting. And they look at me like I'm a sicko. Story 31. Sorry to my other kings out there. This makes me appreciate my wife even more. She compliments me often, never belittles me, and when we met, my financial situation was pretty dismal, and she helped me turn it around. She even instituted austerity measures, which included not allowing me to buy gifts for her. That said, the balding and the body hair everywhere does kind of suck, though. Story 32. I was talking to my sister once about my car acting up, and she said, just flag someone down if you break down. I explained to her as a 6'1", 3 inches, 240 pounds man, I could be on fire on the side of the road and no one would stop to help. She's a 5'9" inches skinny woman with gorgeous red hair. Men would swerve off the road into a tree to be the first in line to help her if she was stranded. It never occurred to her that men were just on their own if they break down without a phone somewhere. Story 33. I think women would have a hard time being berated for not working enough to support the family, while at the same time being berated for working so much that they don't see the family enough. It's a no-win situation that men find themselves in far too often. Not to say some women don't experience this too, but in a one-income family, the man usually gets this treatment, and it hurts to deal with. Story 34. I feel like they would be shocked by what happens to us fellas in romantic relationships. I don't know about everyone else here, but some of the women I have dated have been something else. You always have the looming dread above your head that you can lose your kids, house, 401k, and have to pay alimony all because she said she didn't want to be with you anymore. Story 35. Not having anyone to talk to your feelings about. Yes, we have friends, but we never talk about our feelings with them. Yes, we have partners, but we don't talk about our feelings with them out of fear that we will become a burden. And then it starts an argument. The loneliness it is of being a man. Also the splash from peeing in the toilet. Story 36. All of these sentiments are super valid, but it doesn't escape me that the majority are caused by men themselves, like having to not seem threatening to women, other people thinking you are babysitting your kids, etc. The reputations are there for a reason, and the numbers back those up. It does fill me with gratitude that the men who complain about it are actually acting like fathers, and others do sympathize with women. Story 37. There are plenty of double standards that women suffer, but the one women would most if they became men is the automatic assumption that the man is wrong in any spousal disagreement. This is palpable on Reddit. I remember a few weeks apart reading extremely similar scenarios with only the genders reversed. Common denominator? The man was in the wrong, according to the majority of commenters. It was wild reading the mental gymnastics and unwarranted assumptions needed to paint the husband in a bad light in each scenario. Story 38. Maybe off topic, but my husband does everything domestic without being asked, including laundry, childcare, cooking, and cleaning, without a second thought, and very capable. This actually tended to upset people, including my friends, who would say that we had role reversal like it was bad somehow. Not that I did nothing, but my spouse is very energetic and is always bustling around, so it's just his nature, and he was perfectly competent. Seriously, this made people resentful. Story 39. Not complaining, I love being a man, and the list of grievances women have is bad, but since you asked, never ever complimented, expected to be the breadwinner and having almost constant anxiety around that, expected to just STFU and get through everything. Not being totally trusted in certain situations with kids and coworkers alone. This is somewhat understandable, but I once had a coworker basically tell me she didn't want to fool around when I had zero plan in doing so. We were just working late together. I don't blame her, but I did not appreciate what she was implying when I had no interest in cheating. It made me feel like a slime ball when I was indeed not a slime ball. Story 40. Always being feared. I'm 6'3", about 265 pounds, and a nurse for geriatrics. Most of the little old ladies are scared of me till they get to know me. Spent a lot of time with my grandmother growing up and lived with her for several years as an adult. It's heartbreaking to scare anyone like that, but especially the people I've been trained to look out for. That being said, if you have a family member in long-term care, go see them regularly. They miss you and think of you all the time. Story 41. Reading this thread has made me realize that we are failing as a society. The men in our world are not accepted for being human. I never thought about a lot of this ever before, and I'm ashamed to admit that. We need to do better. Men shouldn't have to live like this. And women, if you're judging a man because he's expressing his feelings, shame on you. Support your boyfriend/husband/male friends. This is just awful. And to the man who shared about a kid freaking out by having to sit next to him, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That is the parents' fault for not teaching their kid that not everyone is a danger, regardless of appearance. Some of the most horrific crimes are committed by men and women who look approachable. Story 42. I love seeing the social experiments with dating apps where women get permission from a male friend to make a dating profile pretending to be him. I saw a TikTok earlier of a woman who did this with her friend's photos who she considered to be like a 6. She said she was swiping on all sorts of people, even women she felt like were 2S and 3S, and felt like her male friend was way out of their league. She wasn't getting very many matches and was struggling to have meaningful conversations with the women she did match with. She started talking about how depressed it was making her feel, trying to be in those shoes and seeing the results. Like, dating is hard out here these days. Story 43. I'm a high school teacher. Love it. Well, mostly. But I avoid so much that my female colleagues don't all necessarily worry about. I don't compliment female students if they look nice. A student dropped something today and I picked it up by turning my back so no one even assumed I was trying to sneak a peek at someone's unmentionables. If a girl is wearing something revealing at all, I look up, around, anywhere but at her. BC, it's either creepy forced eye contact or run the risk of someone thinking I'm again looking. And FYI, girls today don't conceal much. Mostly the same story as everyone else. Pedo, creepy until proven innocent. Story 44. How hard it is to find friends who are okay with you being emotionally vulnerable. I have a close few, but it seems to be a more rare thing than you'd believe. I genuinely feel and worry for some of my friends who don't have the confidence in themselves or self-love to be open in that way. On the other end, it's okay to let that out, but hard to not feel like a bother. Sometimes it's looked down upon, and people are much more oblivious and assume everyone can just deal like it works for many but not all. But damn it, male suicide rates are up not for lack of care or effort, but for lack of vision and purpose. Anyone out there reading this, it's worth reaching out. It's worth opening up to a trusted person you may be a little hesitant or anxious to. You may be surprised how much love, care, and compassion people have when you allow them show it. Story 45. I have come to terms with the fact that I am here on my own. There's no one to help me, but I'm expected to support anyone that is in need of help. I do it. It's just the way society is. People will flame you for doing your best, but you still aren't seen as doing enough for everyone. It is never enough. It is like a black hole. Everything you do just goes into it, and it is never ending. Story 46. The simple reality that you can have good, solid relationships, be surrounded by good, kind, caring people that honestly love and care about you, and still 99% of the time, your very base existence is never acknowledged unless people want something from you. You exist to solve problems, fix broken things, and pull the cart, and otherwise, with rare and minor exceptions, you might as well not exist. Story 47. Not getting matches from dating sites, attention from the opposite. Legit think this would be the hardest. You can say you don't want the attention all you want. I've turned people down. It's a rush. I don't think some of you appreciate that your self-esteem is built on a foundation of broken hearts, and the vast majority of women will never come close to understanding how bitterly lonely maleness can be. 2. They'd miss not getting called on their bullshit because people want you to like them and SOs don't want to argue. 3. Being seen as disposable by society at large. Edit, misread question slightly, changed phrasing for clarity. Story 48. Just today here in Florida, I've been in constant contact with my women friends and cousin. We're all reaching out to make sure we have everything we need. My husband had no one to text, though he is a wonderful guy. Even if he did, I think men don't want to reach out and admit they might need something or each other. My Florida friends aren't even my closest ones. I'm sure it's not necessary for living at all, and I can see why it's wise to be self-sufficient. Still, I can't imagine not being part of a loving and nurturing community that has a first instinct to look out for each other. People say a lot of negative things about how women are conditioned, but I love that so many women are conditioned to be wonderful sister friends to each other. Story 49. By my senior year in high school, I was 6 feet 250 and muscular. I was beyond happy reaching my goals, but seeing girls, especially my age, avoiding me in public hurt. Being told by my crush that she didn't like how big I was truly broke me, and seeing people treat me less friendly because of the goals I had accomplished made me extremely depressed and conflicted. Looking in the mirror and seeing exactly what you've been striving to achieve and hating it / having people be afraid of you, for it is a pain that can be really hard to deal with. Less of a man-specific thing, but it feels good to get it off my chest. Story 50, women would not be able to handle any of the social aspect. Men are teased a lot, especially by friends. Men are not that close and don't discuss much personal feelings. Men have to deal with rejection a lot more in dating. Women seem to handle a man rejecting them a lot worse. Men have to deal with a dating tax. You don't have to just afford to pay for your life, but you are expected to pay for any potential mate. Even dinner with a stranger is expensive when a woman expects a fancy restaurant date. Men don't get the same attention on social media. Many women rely on the attention they get from racy pictures. God forbid you get a divorce. Getting told when and how long you can see your kid, then having to pay child support, which is generally the entire cost of rent these days on top of your regular expenses. Story 51. Many will probably be surprised by how much they will be socially isolated and how completely uncaring the average person will be to you. Most people in your life will only care about your money or your labor and will drop you the second you can't provide. You need to constantly prove yourself in a very competitive environment to achieve even the smallest things in life, be it love, a career, art, etc. Basically, the social safety net doesn't exist for men. Life is what you make of it, and only a few really make it. Story 52. A bunch of women responding here are generally talking about more superficial challenges like financial expectations, manual labor, being judged for appearances, while a lot of male comments center around mental and emotional health challenges. Interesting. Story 53. People crossing the road to avoid them despite being completely harmless. Being scared to be on a dark, dodgy street with only the woman in front of you. Trying to keep up with her while she's trying to keep away from you. Running after a woman to return a purse/money/phone and having her male friends threaten you with bodily harm until you show them what you're trying to do. Not being able to have a laugh with the kids and chat with other parents at a playground. My daughter is 8. And when I bring her out for daddy-daughter bonding, the sheer number of weird looks I get would have pissed my wife off if it happened to her. Story 54. Always being questioned. If something happens and it's not your fault, it's your fault. True story, my wife demanded I park further back in the driveway because the driveway was tight for 2 cars side by side. I never had an issue, but she did. So I parked further back. 2 days later, she backs into the driveway and slams into my brand new truck. I ran outside thinking someone was breaking into it only to see her standing there looking at my pissed and yelling, "Why did you park there?" I pointed my baseball bat at her and said, "You're lucky," and walked inside. Yep, it's my fault. Story 55. Everything. I would never want to become a man. Even before reading these responses, I had a hunch about the crippling loneliness, no one caring about their feelings, not receiving compliments or acts of affection. I generally give compliments to both men and women equally if I feel genuine about something. I notice that often men take it more to heart when I point out some specific quality that I appreciate about them. Story 56. The way society treats men that aren't attractive. Let's admit it, only like 10% of us are. As a man, I've noticed you can go days without talking to anyone, and nobody's going to check on you. If it's getting late and you're walking, people will go out of their way to avoid cross your path or passing near you. You had a bad day. Oh well, no one cares to hear about your problems. You can't show any signs of weakness, be that physically or emotionally, because people will automatically label you as weak or non-dependable. I believe both sides have their pros and cons, but I believe if women were to try being a man, they wouldn't last a month. Story 57. Constant rejection on your advances from the woman you are in a relationship with. Being in a relationship where her hormones are accepted, I'm on my period, as an excuse to behavior, but yours, drive, is not accepted and you are told no. Knowing that if you are in need, no one is going to go out of their way to help you. You are just expected to figure it out. Story 58. If you're an average to below average man without exceptional talent, wealth, or status, then you're completely invisible and nobody cares about you. Unless you're hitting a home run in the game of life, then validation, love, and respect will be hard to get and even more difficult to maintain. We're also graded on the bell curve, so even if we do the right things, then it still won't be enough if others are doing better. Story 59. Probably the thankless life that we live. I'm not a guy that's into gender wars as I love and respect women, but during my breakup where my fiance cheated on me, she was in the wrong but had loads of support and people telling her she made a mistake, but it's not her fault. No one was there for me. No one. Story 60. Speaking only from my own experience as a 45M, my drinks and meals purchased for a lady versus having them bought for me ratio stands at about 20-1. Flowers approximately 30-1. Number of non-family women, platonic or otherwise, I have helped move or transport heavy furniture or appliances around 15 times. The favor has never been returned. I used to write in calligraphy and make little amusing origami figures for a variety of purposes, thank you notes, invitations, etc. For this, I was more than once called creepy and once Hannibal Lecter. I don't know this, but I doubt a woman would face similar criticism. Online dating yielded less than 1% dates to likes. In other words, out of approximately 200 likes and accompanying messages sent, I could expect perhaps 20 to return a like with no further action, 5 to return a message, and 1 or less to meet up. This figure ignores bots, catfish, and scammers. As I understand it, this is more or less typical. I might even be a little ahead for my age and demographic. Also, we die sooner. On the other hand, it's a lot easier to pee outdoors, so it all balances out in the end. Story 61. Honestly think that both women and men experience similar types of problems, just expressed a bit differently. For example, both women and men experience loneliness because what we need are not superficial relationships, but more meaningful relationships that allow us to be who we feel most comfortable being. So while perhaps a woman can download Tinder and get a massive amount of matches compared to a man, there is a real possibility that this does not result in a meaningful relationship. Ultimately, I think that this is a societal problem that certainly isn't helped by social media giving the illusion that everyone is living an amazing life and you are not. Although I'm a dude, so I may be completely wrong, haha. Story 62. Wow, I've been reading through this thread, and as a woman I feel so bad for y'all. Not that I'm the type to mend for no reason or assume bad intentions like some women do, but even at my young age, I'm realizing I've taken a lot of small things for granted on top of the obvious big stuff. But on the other hand, I also don't feel like I'm experiencing all these advantages that men seem to think we all experience. It may be because I'm young and maybe I'm uglier than I think, but I haven't been asked out or even hit on by anyone since like middle school. I rarely get compliments. I was expected to lift pretty heavy stuff at work. No one was there to help or anything. Most of my friends I feel like I'm not close enough with to share anything remotely deep or personal. And outside of my family, my parents really, it doesn't seem like anyone cares about me either. This is not to say that men don't have it worse in these aspects, though. So please don't take it that way. I always feel bad that you guys have to deal with the mental pressure of all these stupid expectations. And nowadays, men can't do anything without becoming some sort of target. And I do understand that part of why I don't get asked out is probably because they're worried about me taking it negatively, even though I would honestly be flattered just to be considered. And maybe people don't want to help me lift stuff because I might be the kind of girl to yell at them and say something like, "Oh, so you don't think I'm strong enough to lift this on my own?" Or something crazy like that. I honestly, those kinds of women who get mad for no reason when I'm sure they just meant to help or be nice. But I'm taking notes for the future, guys. If I ever find a boyfriend or have a male friend, I'll try to make sure you feel comfortable sharing your feelings. I'll help out with the manly stuff like killing bugs or fixing stuff, which I already do. I won't cross the street or look at you weird in parks. For no reason, still gotta be safe. And I'll know to be understanding of stuff down there that you can't control. LMK if I left something out. Story 63. The woman who did it for 6 months said the complete isolation due to the fact that men are pressured by society to stand entirely on their own while also providing for others. And yeah, that kind of sucks. The people that depend on me would rather see my dead on my feet than to take a knee for a moment. That's just a sort of day-to-day thing, though. I'm mostly the dirty looks I get for trying to be friendly while walking to work. Story 64. How unsocialized, emotionally unavailable, and downright hostile a lot of other men are. Feeling used, being on guard when someone contacts you because they are probably going to ask for something. Being weirded out when they don't. Failing as a provider through job loss or similar, and wondering if that's all you are to your SO when you see how they react. Story 65. After I broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years, she immediately had a line of men asking to be her boyfriend. Had 4 relationships over the course of the next 5 years before getting married. I have still not had a single real relationship since, and I feel like I have to be a fully self-actualized man before I'll even be in the dating pool in my 20s. Soon I may just be a creepy old man and never have kids. Funny. Story 66. NGL. Probably the pressure to hide emotions or always having to seem tough. A lot of guys deal with that, and I feel like women would find it super frustrating. Also, the whole thing with society expecting men to make the first move or handle everything, like paying on dates or initiating conversations, might be something women wouldn't enjoy much either. It's a lot of unspoken pressure. Story 67. I have a daughter who's almost 2 yo. Every time she goes to a park and plays, then another kid interacts with her. If I need to come over to keep her from being a brat or something, I look around and notice every adult's eyes are on me suddenly. Not in a aw good dad teaching daughter not to be mean way, but I'm volunteering as witness to any disturbance way. God forbid those children come up to me to show me a rock or something. I'm a pretty goofy person around children. They stare at me and I'll make a face or something, but I have to keep watch for how long any interaction goes for. After I see the parent get visibly nervous, I, purposefully louder than I was being so they could hear I meant no harm, say, I think you should head back over to your parents or some shit. Lots of eye contact with the parents here. I was just trying to get my daughter to run around and play. There are things I understand as primary helicopter pilot in my relationship and as a parent. If we are at some creek or hotspot for kids to play more freely, I try to corral the kids somewhere that their parents have eyes on them if they're straying a bit too far, and my kid and I happen to be over there. If I'm close to where their line of sight is broken, it's almost like an alarm goes off. All the moms spring up to see me pointing in their direction, telling the kid to head back that way. I'm not luring them down the creek like some pedo tyrant or some shit. My helicopter blades are spinning because I see danger for your kids. I'm worried about their safety too. Purposefully vocalizing, I'm telling this kid to go to you, not come to me, is a normal occurrence that happens. Story 68. I see a lot of lack of compliment comments. Most of the compliments in my life are from women. Why don't guys compliment one another? I go to another woman when I'm about to cry. Can men do the same, or is there an unspoken rule thing I'm missing? Story 69. You can only hang out at the park when it's completely empty. One time I was out meditating by the pond and these two kiddos come walking by. They see what I'm doing and actually stop and say, this spot is really nice, let's sit down and enjoy it. So now it's just me and these two young girls sitting by the pond alone. I got up with the quickness and dipped. No way am I going to deal with the consequences of that assumption just to sit by the pond a little longer. Story 70. But why does it seem like ladies will still continue to behave the way they do, even after reading this thread? Like, my painful question is, how long will both sides continue pointing fingers at each other's inadequacies, rather finding excuses to help, care, and give a damn about one another, to look out for each other on basic everyday tasks and bad thoughts that poison our days, and to come by and give good tidings and kind words? I believe that I such a small step, but could make a huge difference in at least meeting new people. What y'all think? Story 71. Not most disliked, but the amount of times people will discuss men with scorn around you. And you'll get it, and you'll say you get it, and you'll understand why they need to vent in that way. And you'll totally believe they don't mean you, obviously. But it'll still get exhausting and unwelcoming, and you'll always want to sort of leave the room or the conversation. Story 72. I have a younger sister, 13 years younger than me. When I would take her shopping or to events, I'd get the nastiest looks from women. Someone even asked her if she was okay sometimes. The loss of trust is the biggest thing. You don't get the benefit of the doubt when you are a man. People always expect the worst of you until you prove somehow that you aren't a puss. Story 73. I'm a father, little girl, and I was on my break at work one day and saw a little girl crying on the sidewalk. I wanted to help and walked over to ask what was wrong. She was literally crying for her mother. The instant she saw me, she stopped crying and looked terrified. I felt terrible and had to walk to some nearby parked cars to find a woman to come help. Fun fact, the woman was also startled and suspicious of me. FML.